Welcome back to Season 3 of the FITTR podcast. In last week's episode, we spoke with Jitendra Chouksey, aka JC, the founder of FITTR, where he spoke about his concept of what it truly means to be healthy. It's not just about physical fitness, but also mental, emotional, social, and being financially fit. And yet, so many people struggle with this. They don't understand what they need to do and why they can't achieve their goals. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this episode of the FITTR podcast. One of the reasons a lot of people can't get fit is because we tend to blame something that is external to us. Our diets are not right, our environment isn't supportive, people don't believe in us. We always have some excuse that we come up with, and we always have a scapegoat whom we can blame for a lack of health. I think the problem is the fact that we tend to see life in black and white. People, things, diets are either for us or against us. Either this is going to work or that is going to pull you down. And it's this kind of black and white thinking that might just be holding you back. Let's talk to JC and figure out how you can change your mindset and adopt a healthier mindset to achieve your goals in life. JC, welcome back to your own podcast.
Yeah, I have to stop saying that.
Yeah.
Our podcast.
Our podcast, yes. So, like I was saying, you spoke about this last time also. Health is not just physical, but also mental, emotional, social, financial, right? What is preventing people from achieving this? We took a look at that also. You said we need to create systems. We need to have those systems in place that are going to help people.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest hurdles, I would say, is this black and white thinking that I was just talking about.
How ironical.
Exactly. Black and white. So what is it, in your opinion, why do people have this kind of a mindset and how can they get out of it?
I think it's primarily just lack of education. Historically, if something hasn't worked for people, instead of trying to better it, they have completely rejected the notion. And what happens is, when something doesn't work, it's actually working somewhere. There's some elements of it which are still useful. The minute you discard that thing in its entirety, move on to something else, you basically reject the good parts along with the bad parts. And then over a period of time, what happens is something else that you tried working on and it didn't work out. You then suddenly come back to this thing and you're like, oh, maybe this thing wasn't so bad. Right? So what's happening is you're constantly going from one perfect thing to another perfect thing to another perfect thing, which doesn't exist. Everything has their benefits, everything has their pros, everything has their cons. And the idea should be to take the good out of everything, ignore the bad parts, but don't completely discard everything that's there, right? Because there's no such thing as a perfect diet, a perfect routine, a perfect human being, a perfect life. There's no such thing. So getting accustomed to the idea that everything that we want perfect simply can never be perfect. So one of the things is this.
Yeah. Talking about the perfect diet, I think going back to the 50s or 60s, there have been these cycles of, good food versus bad food that's been coming at us. In the 50s and 60s, we were told, oh my God, fats are terrible, start eating more carbs.
Yes.
The 70s or 80s, suddenly carbs became the villain, everybody's doing keto.
Yeah.
So like you said, everyone is searching for that one perfect thing that is going to help them. How is that damaging to people? Tell us that.
So the reason why we go from one thing to another is primarily because we believe that everything is black or white. It has to be either this or that. Really doesn't work that way. There's like millions of colors. The spectrum is way too wide. And you realize that black and white is actually the same color. It's just the presence and absence of light which gives the black color its color. So what people need to understand is that this is a very wide spectrum, and just labeling something as good and bad does more harm to you than benefits, right? So first of all, get rid of the notion that something is healthy or unhealthy. We have established this before, and I think the world scientists, they have hinted at this thing over and over again, that it's really the dosage that makes the poison.
Right.
Which means that even the healthiest of the foods on the planet will become unhealthy when the quantity exceeds your ADI. In a similar manner, even the worst kinds of foods on planet, which people deem as unfit, might just be beneficial in smaller quantities or micro quantities. For example, how do you make a medicine for snake venom?
Using snake venom.
Using snake venom. How do you make vaccines? By using viruses, right? So he realized that a poison and elixir are not really two different things. It's the dose that makes elixir the poison, and the dose that makes the poison, same poison, an elixir for somebody. Right? So people need to get rid of the notion that something is good, something is bad. It's just they need to get more used to of the notion that maybe it's the quantity that's making them good or bad.
Can you maybe very quickly tell our viewers about this whole carb versus fat battle that's been raging for such a long time? How did it all start, and what is reality? What is fact?
Right. So historically, the fats used to come from nuts, seeds. Then around the 19th century, we started using lard, margarine. We started using butter, some sort of ghee. I mean, in India, a ghee was used probably centuries before then it came in the rest of the world. But the rest of the world got accustomed to the idea of added fats in food probably around 18th, 19th century, right? I'm talking about rest of the world, not India. And then this whole new way of cooking food, feeding soldiers during the World War I, World War II, it kind of gave people or gave industries a way to feed the soldiers and minimal viable cost, right? So they used to feed them lard, margarine, and like very poorly processed butter, and then somehow it made it into the mainstream food because they were good for frying. They had very high smoking point, right? And then it made it to industrial processing, and then now we have plethora of food that we use, and it's fried food, and fried food tastes amazing, right?
Oh yeah.
So back in the 1960s, Ainsel Keys and the 7-country study, which is quite infamous for the findings, along with other scientists, they were kind of observing what's leading into so many cardiovascular incidents amongst people. And they did this experiment and they figured that maybe it has to do with higher intake of fat, which is increasing probably the blood cholesterol and HDL and LDL levels in the body, right? So they recruited people, took the government funding, did a study on 21 countries, out of which they published data for 7 countries. And that's why it's called the infamous 7-country study, because the data which they conducted for all the 21 countries didn't really make it.
Selective cherry picking?
It was selective cherry picking. And they pointed out that, hey, it's the fat which is increasing the cholesterol in population group. And so we have to avoid eating so much of fats. Right? That suddenly triggered the whole low-fat movement.
Low fat became high carb.
Yeah, low fat became high carb. Everybody's like, oh, carbs are good for you. Then I think in 1978 or maybe around the same time, people found out that high carbohydrate diets were also not helping, and it was causing a lot of insulin resistance.
Because obesity had just kept on increasing.
Obesity just kept increasing, right? So people are like, oh, this is not working. Maybe that is the problem. Oh, that's not working. Maybe this is the problem, right? So we keep going back from one thing to another, hoping that this is perfect, that is bad, and then people love being
for or against.
Yeah, for or against. Yeah, for or against. There's no balance. Like they either love black, they either love white. They see this entire thing into just 2 things, not even 3 things. They're like 2. I'm pro carb, I'm pro fat. That's it. There's no in between. There's no balance, right? So I think it was around then they proposed the carbohydrate insulin model of obesity, and they said, hey, it's probably the high intake of carbohydrates and which is feeding the obesity pandemic. And then everybody started kind of recognizing that, and that by the time ketogenic diet also made a way into the system, it was already claimed to cure some sort of epilepsy and other diseases in children. Yeah, and they noticed that when the children were fed this diet and some adults with epilepsy were given this diet, even some diabetics, they started losing tremendous amount of weight. And that's when people, instead of like using that for the designated purpose of treating epilepsy, they started using it as a medium of losing weight. And in reality, it was a lot of water weight and just glycogen depletion. So in a week's time, people were experiencing weight loss of up to 3 and 4 kgs without realizing.
Your fat isn't decreasing.
Your fat isn't decreasing because, let's be honest, on an average day, you have to be like in a deficit of maybe 1,000 or 2,000 calories to lose, even 100, 200 grams of fat. That's how your body works. And so if you're losing any more than that, that's largely coming from your depleted glycogen stores, and glycogen stores 3 to 4 times as much water. So people are losing some amount of fat and lots of glycogen and lots of water, which they misconceived as total weight loss, fat loss. And so they started talking about how amazing this diet is. And then, it's been going on since then.
Because these days now, okay, keto is very passé. Now it's carnivore diet and lion diet and God knows what else. Every week it seems as if there is a new diet
There's
coming
a new diet that promises everything, that promises the moon. And most of the times the diets, the strategies come with some sort of like subscribe here, a weekly newsletter, or you can get fit for as low as
join
$1.
this community and share your stories. Can you tell us the actual thing that works? You mentioned calories, and I know that you've been saying for a long time that it's a calorie deficit that you need to be in if you want to lose fat. But is that diet specific? Can you follow any diet and be in a calorie deficit, or do you need to follow a particular diet? Is there such a thing called a perfect diet?
Right. So first of all, I have to explain something basic, okay? There's numbers, right? There's alphabets. And these form the most basic fundamental structures for you if you wish to learn, let's say, English or algebra or mathematics, right?
Correct.
So these are fundamental things. You can't mess around with these things. You can't come up and say, hey, this is my version of alphabets, or this is my version of numericals. I'm not going to count from 1 till 10. I'll probably count 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10. You can't do that because there's a bunch of scientists and people, for the sake of humanity, have established this numerical system. Okay, as long as we are living on this planet, we are going to follow the numeric system, and it has withstood the test of time, right? So it's not an observational data; it's empirical data. It has lasted centuries and centuries of, like human trials,
right?
And that's how we have come to the conclusion: hey, I'm going to count from 1 till 10, okay, or I'm going to read A, B, C, D all the way till Z, right? In a similar manner, calorie counting is not really a fad or really some sort of like a thing which I have developed or somebody developed. It's a mathematical concept which works on the universal principles of equilibrium. It works on the mathematical principles of thermodynamics, right? And thermodynamics says that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can merely transfer from one form to another, right? The food that we eat is a form of energy. We know that, right? The energy, when we eat, we consume. Where does it go? Either, you use it, you do your daily chores, next morning you poop it out. The remaining of that, it gets stored in your body. So form of energy, the food getting converted into fat, another form of energy, right? So using the same kind of principles, we then realize, hey, if I were to create an energy system, and then if there were some sort of an energy deficit, much like in a car or any kind of machine, if my body serves as a reservoir, can there be a situation where I create some sort of energy deficit and my body taps into its existing reservoirs, means existing fat stores, right? So when this state is called a state of calorie deficit, which means that, hey, if my body has a requirement for a certain amount of calories on a regular basis, let's say 1800, 2000 calories, if I were to consume, let's say 1500 or 1400 calories, would my body mandate my fat stores to kind of start getting utilized? It would, right? That's how your body works.
So instead of you eat a little less, and so your body then starts deriving its energy from the stored fat.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they are there for in first place.
Right. It's kind of like, your body's saving something for a rainy day.
Exactly.
You're not going to get food. Okay, let's use the fat.
Exactly.
Is it really as simple as that?
It is as simple as that.
But then why have people complicated it so much?
Yeah, because it requires sticking to the one thing. And what happens is that people don't understand the concept that your body is not made out of cast iron or wood. It's made up of living organisms. These living organisms or cells are capable of adapting, So there are certain nuances. For example, let's say if you were to consume a 500, 600 calorie diet, which is like a really hypocaloric diet and crash diet, and technically you'd be in deficit, then why aren't you losing a lot of weight? Or why can't you continuously lose weight? What happens is that when we talk about your body's energy demands, they are not fixed. They vary. They vary depending on your age, weight, height, body, gender, etc. And a lot of it also comes from the amount of activity that you perform, which is the non-exercise energy thermogenesis. You consume less amount of calories, your brain starts burning less calories, your organs start burning less calories, you move less physically, right? So your body instantly goes into survival mode. And as a result of which, let's say your maintenance calories were this, you start consuming super low calories. After a while, all of your organs will start consuming less amount of calories because the energy efficiency goes up, right? Your body can do some amount of work or suboptimal work with less amount of calories. And the body is going to do that because it would seem like it needs to protect you against an imminent death, right? And that's why your maintenance calories go down. And because of which, people simply can't lose weight. And so what we have learned over the years with our experience is that do not go on these hypocaloric diets. You know, you
When
have
you
to
say
create
hypocaloric, it means very low calorie diets.
very low calorie diets, right? So stay at calories where the body does not recognize some sort of an imminent threat, you know, where the calorie deficit that you're in, it feels like a natural day-to-day protocol rather than a life-threatening situation.
So your body doesn't starve. You don't want to starve yourself.
You don't want to starve your body. You know, you don't want to get into a situation where your body says, you know what, I don't have sufficient amount for this activity. Yeah.
There's no food coming, I might
There's
as well.
no food coming, yeah. You don't want your body to think that because like I said, your body is not made up of cast iron wood. It's made up of living organisms, cells, and they are capable of adapting.
Let's say I want to lose weight. Where do I start calculating my calories and how do I know, okay, this is how many calories I should eat and it's safe for me to eat these calories and still lose weight? How do I make that judgment?
Well, I mean, there's multiple ways. The simplest one is just calculating your maintenance calories online. And you can do this by either using an online calculator. Your watches also calculate your TDE these days. Apart from this, you can also kind of, you know, weigh yourself on a regular basis on a weighing scale, notice the fluctuations, and that can also help you understand what's your maintenance calories. So there's different ways. Once you have calculated your maintenance calories, you know, you can choose to drop down between 200 to 500 calories below. And when you drop, let's say, 500 calories below your maintenance, in approximately 18 days, you'll be in a deficit of 9,000 calories, which would be like 1 kilogram of fat, right? So this is in theory, of course, the calculations go here and there because human body is not exactly a closed system. But large and large, this is how mathematics work out in case of calorie deficit and how many calories you need to reduce.
But of course, that's not the only thing you can do. You can always increase your activity levels and, you know, burn more calories that way. Yeah.
Sure. One way is to exercise more, which I kind of advise against because exercise also comes with a lot of stress. And it takes a while for your body to recognize and adapt to high levels of stress, right? So I would say if your primary goal is just to lose weight, exercising more is not really the key. You should exercise for 45 minutes to an hour and that's about it. The other thing that you can do is just be active throughout the day. What I mean is that when you exercise, your cortisol levels go up and your cortisol tends to make you hungry. Cortisol also tends to make you retain water. It also messes up with your system.
It disturbs your sleep as well.
It disturbs your sleep as well. On the other hand, when you walk, your cortisol levels never really reach enough levels to disturb you. They do not reach adequate levels to kind of cause you hunger pangs or mess with your sleep. So I'd say work out for 1 hour, especially in the beginning, and if your primary goal is just weight loss, that's it.
1 hour every single day or maybe 3 days a week, 4 days a week?
Well, WHO does recommend working out for at least 45 minutes, 5 days to 6 days in a week. I would say go ahead and do it for 7 days if you can. But, you know, up to individuals. Like, it depends from one individual to another. Like, if you're severely overweight, maybe just getting out of your bed might feel like an exercise. Right, so it's what's comfortable for you in the beginning and then keep going up from there.
So to sum up, number 1, find your maintenance calories. 2, create a deficit so you eat a little less. You also walk more, you increase your activity levels. And at the same time, you work out for at least 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah. You can start with as low as, let's say, 15 minutes per day. You know, just work out for 15 minutes if you can't do workout for 45 minutes.
I actually saw one of the workouts you've designed for somebody. It was a very quick 15-minute, I think it was like spot jogging and then jumping and followed by push-ups and squats. So even something like this done for 15 minutes a day, that is a good idea?
Yes. It's a high-intensity protocol. It gives you the right amount of exercise in a very minimal amount of time. You have to understand that this program is only suited for people who have no cardiac history or probably younger folks who have like a slightly stronger heart and they can take the strain. I typically would not recommend HIIT to people who are overweight or have some sort of cardiac history, at least not unmonitored. You know, but there are ways like this HIIT protocol. There are ways in which you can maximize the efficiency of your workouts in the least amount of time. So it's not just a matter of like, oh, you have to go to the gym every single day, you have to lift or, you know, do whatever for, 1 hour, 2 hours. No, it can be as little as 10 minutes every day. You can just squat, do push-ups, climb a flight of stairs. That's a good start. Keep yourself active. That's the most important thing.
So let's say that we have 2 options. Either you eat less or you increase your activity levels. What would you prefer? What would you rather do? What would you advise people to do? What is a better approach?
I generally eat less. I don't move more. There are some people who like eating more. In that case, you can eat more, but you also have to move more than I do. So it really boils down to what's your personal preference. For example, Rohit, he doesn't have a high metabolism. I do not have a slower metabolism. It's just that my daily step count is probably below 10,000, and by the time I reach office, he's already done 20,000 steps, right? So, and he doesn't count his calories as precisely as I do. I'm always around 80, 1900 calories.
But you need to calculate your calories precisely because you don't have a high activity level.
Not really. It's also primarily because I stay at a certain body fat percentage throughout the year.
So it also depends on the goal that you have.
And it's also like I'm very disciplined. Like Rohit is not as disciplined as I am, as everybody knows by now.
Rohit's going to love this episode. So normal people, you decide how you want to achieve that calorie deficit.
Yeah.
If you know that you love food, you're not going to cut your calories too much. It won't be sustainable.
Yeah.
Like I know I like food. Right? So maybe therefore in that case, I can only, how much of a calorie deficit, 200, 300 calories is fine. But then I need to maybe increase my activity.
Yeah, you have to increase your activity levels. You have to walk more. You can't exercise more. So the only thing is you can increase your activity levels. If you exercise more, you're going to feel more hungry. So it's a vicious cycle.
Correct. And you're going to hate your diet and you're going to hate your life and you're going to do it. Now, coming back to one point we had made earlier about how the dose makes the poison. I want to come back to this very recent announcement that the World Health Organization had made about aspartame. Aspartame causes cancer. And at that time, I remember you had made a post about this, that maybe they haven't got it right this time. That it's about understanding the study, looking at the dosage. So could you just tell our viewers about that?
So WHO never really mentioned that artificial sweeteners are bad for you. They said don't use artificial sweeteners or NNS, non-nutritive sweeteners, as a mean to lose weight.
Okay.
So there's a very big difference in what the WHO said and what the whole world inferred from it. They never said don't choose artificial sweeteners or they're bad. Now, about them listing artificial sweeteners as a carcinogen, because there's been a lot of pressure, there's a lot of awareness around the whole thing and people have been raising their voices, they've classified them as a class 2B carcinogen. Now, people need to understand that there's different classes of carcinogens, okay? Pretty much everything, right from sipping a cup of coffee to using your mobile phones to absorbing the artificial light can cause cancer. Even sunlight can cause cancer. Right? So everything can be classified on a scale of, let's say, highly severe to very low severity. Class 2B is very low severity, which means that you're talking about carcinogens in the category of mobile phone, pickles, aloe vera that you apply on your skin, and that's basically a class 2B. So aspartame is classified as a potential carcinogen in class 2B, which is the least possible risk.
So, okay, you're saying that don't use it, or the WHO is saying don't use it as a means to lose weight.
Yeah, because
if you want to use it in your coffee or tea every day, is that fine?
So what has happened is, over a period of time, artificial sweeteners have touted them as a remedy to weight loss, which is not true. See, WHO's problem is not with artificial sweeteners. The problem is the whole world making sugar an evil when it's really not. See, we have always told the world that sugar is not bad. You can have sugar mindfully in your diet. If you quantify sugar, 1 gram of sugar just provides 4 calories. Now,
the same as rice, the same as potatoes.
When some of the companies are coming out and they are saying, hey, sugar is bad for you. Now, WHO, in all fairness, with this, is saying you can lose weight with sugar too. So don't use artificial sweeteners as a way to lose weight. Sure, you want to cut down on some calories, go ahead, do that. But don't think that just by using artificial sweeteners instead of sugar, you're going to lose weight. That doesn't happen. In fact, in some of the studies that they compared, some people consumed sugar, some people consumed artificial sweeteners. And because both were in calorie deficit, they ended up both losing same amount of weight. Right? So it's about that. Their main problem was with the fact that NNS is kind of touting themselves as a remedy to weight loss. It's not. It can save you some calories. That's all.
But at the end of the day, you still need to go out, create a calorie deficit by being more active, eating a little less, and being more mindful of the food choices you make.
See, I mean, in a way, you can use NNS as a mean to eat more food. For example, if I'm craving, let's say, a cold drink, I can always go for a diet version of the drink, which provides me less than 1 calorie.
Right.
As opposed to the same high sugar version of the diet drink, which provides me, let's say, 300, 400 calories, right? That can make a huge difference, right? So smartly using NNS as a part of your dietary routine can be helpful in creating calorie deficit.
We started the conversation by saying how you should not look at things in black and white.
Yeah.
But there still are people who are going to, I think, look at certain diets and say, you know what, I think this diet is the best diet, not that diet. What would you say to these people? Do they need to look at things a different way? Or maybe what happens a few years down the line when they don't see results? Because I think that's what happens. You start a keto diet, for instance. I remember I started a keto diet. I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to have cheese, I'm going to have butter, I'm going to have ghee, and I'm going to lose weight like that. Didn't happen. And I just totally gave up. And I haven't been able to find my way back. So do you see this happening a lot with
Absolutely,
people?
absolutely. I think the minute you think something is not right and something else is perfect, this is basically hopping from one thing to another. You do that with careers, you do that with your partners, your girlfriends, you do that same thing with exercises, you do the same thing with food. At the end of the day, you're never really in the zone. You're never really happy. You're always hopping. You know, like you place your source of happiness in the future. You're like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to be happy, you know, or that's going to be my perfect life partner, or this is going to be the perfect exercise. That's going to be my perfect diet. Never happens. You're never going to be happy. And today, tomorrow, someday in the future, you'll figure out that it's not really about having that perfect diet. It's about finding the balance. And that's about it. Stick to the same thing long enough, you'll see results.
If people want to read a little more or understand this a little more, what resources does FITTR have that they can maybe look at and, you know,
Everything.
learn something?
We have so many animated videos. We have books. They can read the Get Shredded document, which is available in all sorts of different languages. And really the animated version of videos on YouTube are like super helpful. Besides that, I think I've made 100+ reels on all the subjects. And they have an elaborate series on all these motion, nutrition, hydration, rest and recovery on my YouTube channel. They can watch that. So it's a lot of material. So nobody today can say that there's not enough material. I'd say if you have time, the information is out there. But then it boils down to execution. You know, you have to execute it, and that's where your day one start, and just have to make it till day 100 to learn and see the results.
Yeah, try it out for yourself, see that it works, and you will see that it works. And then it's a matter of just sticking to it. JC, as always, a great conversation. And I think it's a good place to wrap up this episode by saying that education is the key. Making the mindset shift is vital. And just stick to it and you will see results. Thanks so much.
Thank you.